So good evening, everyone. Exciting to be here with you all as we kick off another year of the Community Budget Review Committee, CBRC. It's one of those things I try to mitigate using acronyms, so you'll catch me here and there because we do. So good evening, everyone. It's excited to trying to mitigate that. But why don't we just kick it off with introductions? I know there's a few familiar faces here and other folks that are familiar names as well on the screens. Other folks that are here new for the first time. So I'll kick it off and then I will popcorn out and then the next person can then popcorn out accordingly. And we'll take it from there. So my name is Norberto Delgadillo and my pronouns are he, him. I am the Chief Financial Officer for Portland Public Schools. I've been here for almost 2 years. So no longer new, no longer have excuses. So I can't do that. But nonetheless, I really am excited to be supporting this process and kicking off another year. And I see that we have a icebreaker question. So I guess that's up to me. I don't see one here posted. So then I'm going to go with, what was your favorite class in school? So it's maybe that's not too long ago, but then there are others. Or maybe I won't give away my age, but my favorite class in school was high school. And believe it or not, it was an elective that was organic chemistry. So that was my favorite class because we did a lot of cool experiments in the class. And it influenced me so much that was my undergraduate major. So I was a major in chemistry. And an amazing teacher, Mr. De La Losa. So wherever he may be, shout out to him. So yeah, I'm going to popcorn out to Roger.
Good evening. My name is Roger Kirshner. I use he, him. I'm a volunteer with Portland Public Schools. I work regularly over at Franklin High School. I probably am the longest serving member of CBRC. Have been on for over a decade. My favorite subjects in high school were math and history, and I was a political science major later in college, and so and I tend to be a political junkie, as Jordan knows well. Because I'm always bugging him about something. But anyway, I attend board meetings on a regular basis, as I would encourage all committee members to do or to follow, because the board, as they take action throughout the year, it does have fiscal impact. So I'll go to the next person. How about Paul?
Hi, Paul Fries. I use he, him pronouns, and my favorite class was probably high school physics. We got to build contraptions like a mousetrap car and mousetrap catapult and a Rube Goldberg machine. That was one that stuck with me. All right, I will popcorn to Max.
Hi, I'm Max. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm currently a junior at Grant High School. I think that my current favorite class is computer programming, because I just really enjoy it. And I'll popcorn on to Sonia.
Thank you, Max. Hello, everyone. My name is Sonia Harvey, and I work at Franklin High School as the business manager. My favorite class, English. It was actually English. I really like learning different languages, so English was one of them. I'm going to choose Oscar.
Oscar, I use any pronouns, and I'm right now a junior at PCC Gateway to College program. And my favorite class right now, I would say, is I'm really liking Math 95, but I know that may be an unpopular answer. Oh, and I'll give it to Stephen.
Hello, my name is Stefan. I'm use the pronouns he, him, his. I'm a health economist and faculty at OHSU. I'm really struggling with that question. I have some classes I really didn't like, but I think if I wanted to pick one I liked, it would be history. Really enjoyed history. Next person is Dashiel.
Hi, my name is Deshelle, she, her pronouns, and I'm the president and CEO of Grantmakers of Oregon and Southwest Washington. And I would have to go with high school, and my favorite class was forensics. My teacher would set up the classroom like an entire crime scene, but famous crime scenes, and we would need to solve them, given all the evidence, true evidence that was from the case. So it was really interesting. And I will go with Lisa.
Hi, my name is Lisa Selman. I am the Chief Financial Officer for a real estate development company, and I've spent many years in the public and private sector working in accounting and kind of a transition to urban planning. So, and I have a son at Lincoln High School. And my favorite subject, I guess, was math. Yeah, a lot of really good math teachers along the way, from elementary school to high school and into college. So I will, has Renee gone? I'll pass it to you, Renee.
Good evening. Yes, my name is Renee Anderson. I am a retired teacher. I taught math at Grant High School, and my favorite class was math. Starting in the 4th grade, I declared that I was going to be a math teacher. I am with the Oregon Alliance of Electrical Educators, the program, the organization that presented to the board requesting that the DESC building be renamed to the Dr. Matthew Prophet Center. And that's what it is now. So I will pass it on to Karanja.
I knew you was gonna pass it to me. All right. Karanja Cruz here, parent, educator in the community. Favorite subject. My goodness. I was struggling. I was just trying to think and think and think. And I mean, the only one I can think of is maybe drafting or media literacy. One of the two.
You didn't pass it on, Karanja.
All right. Let's see here. I don't know who hasn't gone yet.
Would that be Taz?
Taz.
I think.
Hello, my name is Taz. I'm a single mom with the community. Currently, I'm an executive with a cell phone company. I'm an engineer major, and my favorite class in school would be math and physics and chemistry, but mainly math.
That's awesome. I think we covered, I think everyone got a chance to go.
I can
Jordan,
go really quick.
Yes,
yeah.
please.
And then this is perfect segue into a couple of the other points I want to share before we move on. But yeah, my name is Jordan Cooper. My pronouns are they, them. I am the confidential executive assistant to Noberto, the CFO. My favorite class was in high school. It was an alternative program, actually, for students who are struggling in school or struggling with awful family situations or drug and alcohol issues. But anyway, it was a wonderful, wonderful program in Gresham Barlow School District. Loved it very much when I was there. So before we move on to, or before I hand it back to Noberto, just a few things. Just a reminder that all of these meetings are recorded. They are live streamed on YouTube. The recordings will also be available for you to go back and watch if you want, which I'll be sending those to you regularly. And later on, I'll show you where you can find those. A couple other things. If you are having a hard time hearing folks, there's a live transcription feature on Zoom at the bottom of your screen. It should show a little box with the letters CC in them. Feel free to use that. And then tonight or in the moving forward into the future, we'll have opportunities for public comment as per our regulations. Tonight we do not have any public comment, but I will be sure to let you all know in advance if we are going to have public comment. And now I'll pass it back to Noberto.
Thank you, Jordan. Yes, it's always good to kind of sync up on the housekeeping rules, and just as a reminder, it's a committee, so we do go through the Oregon and open meetings guidelines and statutes, so we follow those. And as I kind of alluded to earlier, excited to be here with you all, and really we have this remarks from the CFO, but really I think it's you all went through this incredible process of head first into wanting to be on this committee, because one of the key things that we do here is receive community input as we look at the superintendent's proposed budget. So that will happen. The superintendent shares the budget in the spring timeframes. Usually it's late April, but we'll be building towards that. We'll be building understanding and working towards providing information, having conversations with other key team members to help shape the inputs and information that are being used to guide the superintendent's budget, and ultimately having that being tasked by the board to help provide feedback on the superintendent's budget. And the other critical component is that the CBRC also monitors and on the local option levy. So that is an important tax, property tax, that helps fund several hundred teachers. And we'll also have some information around what's a local option levy, how does that work? But that's also a critical role that CBRC plays. And so for the next few months, we'll be working towards a crescendo in April, May, that culminates with a report from CBRC to the board. And I also would welcome Renee, Lisa, Roger, other CBRC members who were here last year. Last year was my first full cycle. And so it was, I think, about my role in supporting the conversations and being the liaison with the board and supporting the conversations here. It'd be great if there was additional insight or context that other members would like to share. I don't need to put anyone on the spot. You don't have to if you don't want to.
Are we going to have Gary and Ellie?
Yes. So Director Lori was unable to make it today. She had a conflict with another meeting, but they would be they would be attending. Although with Director Hollins, I think maybe a little less frequent. But for sure, Director Lori is the board liaison. She's the appointed board liaison to sit on this committee. But unfortunately today she was unable to make it.
And she's also a former member of CBRC before becoming a board a director on the board.
Right. Yep. Well, with that in mind, I'd like to share that over the course of the next few weeks, we are going to be putting together some community engagements leading into the January timeframe as well, where we'll be having presentations around like some brief overview with communities, our migrant community, our special ed community, Indian ed community, a few other groups, and Jordan can chime in and share more details as they're spearheading a lot of the coordination across the different stakeholders to really share some insight into overview of the budget, right? It's no intent is meant to make anyone an expert, but just kind of general overview of how the district budget works, and then also an opportunity to start getting some feedback around some key strategic themes that as the district starts thinking about people, time, and money, as the district starts thinking about resources and budgets to achieve the board goals, because that's ultimately what some of the key things that CBRC does is assessing, well, how is the superintendent's proposed budget designed to help support achieve the board goals? And so there'll be some ongoing community conversations as well, in addition to the conversations we have here, but then there'll be some broader conversations as well with the broader community. But Jordan, I welcome you to add anything else, any other details?
Yeah, I'll just say dates are getting finalized right now, but they'll be done or completely final very soon. As soon as we have all of those dates down, I will send you all information on when those budget engagement events are happening, in case you want to get involved, attend any one of them, and just heads up, 2 of them will be in-person events at 2 different schools, and then one of them will be a virtual event. We do also plan on recording it and putting it on YouTube and translating it. So if you miss out on any of the engagement events, you can always go back and watch them. And then one thing I forgot to say earlier, we typically have our 3rd team member with us, Alexandra Martin. She's not here, couldn't be with us tonight. She's typically doing the notes for the meeting. So just a heads up, I'm working through some of the technical stuff while also doing the notes, while also doing a couple other things. So I'm going to try to pay attention as much as I can. And but yeah, if anything comes up, you don't have access to anything tonight that you need access to, or you're having troubles with anything, feel welcome to use the chat and chat me with real quick. You can also text me. I know I've sent my number a few times in emails. Feel welcome to save that. But yeah, okay, just want to throw that up there.
Thank you. And hopefully Alexandra's feeling better. Something exciting for you all to consider is electing a chair and co-chairs and vice chairs. So the next item on our agenda is really providing an opportunity for the committee to go through a process to identify who would be the chair, co-chair, and Roger, would you mind chiming in, kind of like, you know, you were you'll be passing the baton as the chair from last year. And if you don't mind sharing just a few highlights, I like to say highlights of the work, and we can then proceed with nominations.
Well, last year I reluctantly took the job because we couldn't get anybody to step up and do it. But so I viewed my role as primarily a presiding person, allowing everyone to participate and to move the meeting right along. I'm have a military background, and so I'm very much cognizant of starting meetings on time, and and we did a pretty good job of doing that last year, and many meetings we actually concluded before the 2 hour allotment. In the years that I have been on the committee, that has not always been the case. We've gone several hours over. So punctuality is important, and so is attendance. So you're not wasting time trying to brief a member that was absent as to what has transpired and what has taken place, or dealing with questions that have already been answered and so on. So I'm anxious that we get a person or persons that are willing to chair and move us forward.
And thank you, Roger. And I'll add that in addition to some of the helping to facilitate the conversations and keeping us on track, there's also some sidebar conversations with Jordan and myself as well, and just trying to coordinate topics or managing questions. And so there's some other administrative support functions. So maybe also we're not talking about extra hours a week. It may be an extra 2 hours a month having a planning conversation, or maybe as we get closer to spring and drafting the letter, that tends to be also a big lift, because the recommendation letter is something that the CBRC committee puts together. So the chairs, whether it's the vice chair, the co-chair, help organize that, kind of structure it, piece it together. So if anything, that's probably one of the biggest lifts leading into the spring to meet that deadline is set forth by the board.
But the great thing was we all worked on it together. So everyone had a part, and that made it. I'm hoping that made it easier, right?
I'm sorry, Renee, are you talking? I can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me?
You came across very light. I was able to hear you, but
I'm going to change over to my iPad. This has happened before, and I don't know how to fix it. Except I keep going, leaving and coming back. But I'll go to my.
I'll repeat what you said because I was able to hear, and one of the things that Renee shared, or what Renee shared, was that a benefit leading into this year was that the letter there were sections of the letter that were assigned, so folks collaborated. It wasn't one person just working on it, and that helped make the process easier. And that was also as a result of the group coming together, working with the chair and figuring out what's the most effective way to complete the letter, so that no single person is up till 1 a.m. completing it. I've heard stories before. And so I would recommend against that. And the approach that the committee took last year seemed to have worked out really well in assigning certain sections. Well, with that in mind, I will turn it over to y'all as you consider electing a chair, making nominations. And so why don't we start with chair?
I'd like to nominate Renee.
No, Veronica, that is not why you're on this. No, thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Do we know people well enough to nominate?
I nominated you because I feel like you have a lot of experience, like I think Roger, I believe. So that's the reason why I had nominated you.
Thank you, Karanja.
So I guess my question is there a prerequisite so for folks to be in a chaired or officer level position, I guess wouldn't it be best practice if they had served on the committee prior? But I guess it's just a general question since I think Renee just said, do we know folks well enough to be able to nominate them?
I had that conversation with Jordan just prior to the meeting getting started, and it's my considered opinion that a person who's new to the committee might find it difficult to chair effectively, but it's not impossible. I guess that covers the subject really. There are very few veterans on the existing committee this year. There are 4 of us, Lisa last year was our vice chair, and she took the lead in terms of our drafting our final recommendations and so on. We do have heretofore followed a consensus building process in making our report, and I think that's the way to present. Otherwise, we might consider a majority and minority report or something of that nature. But in all the years that I've been on, it's been a consensus.
And to add a little more detail, I think that, or to add to it, was that I think from the perspective of folks getting to know each other makes sense. And I think last year it was deferred like until another session or so to make final decision on chair. And what's challenging is when we think about the veterans, we had unfortunately a very small committee last year. And so there really weren't so many folks that carried over. And so, right, starting anew, if there's totally open to suggestions, if it's like, hey, well, let's kind of continue to Roger's point, like, if it's consensus for the next few meetings, but ultimately, I think that as activities, whether it's Jordan having conversations with a point person or 2 point individuals to help structure is important, including for myself, or whether it's with Director Lori, is something to consider. But if there are folks that would like to continue with the nomination, they can share a little bit about themselves. We can think of if there's a proposal to think about a different process that delays this for another session or 2. That's also certainly something we can do. And I think it's just compounded with the challenge of, I think it was 4 individuals, Roger, right? That carried over versus like a healthy group of 10 individuals that have experienced CBRC. But I'll pause and put myself on mute and let you all have a conversation and see what y'all think.
So I think, again, like we have a few people that have been on for several years, and I think what could potentially work is we have a chair, co-chair, and it's a combination of a new person and someone that's like for myself, I'm in the third year and I also have some other obligations, but I'm certainly happy to help. But I do think for new members, it would be good to go through a meeting or two to understand what our process is. I will say that the staff are amazing, and Jordan in particular is extremely helpful in helping facilitate conversations and moving the meeting forward and helping establish the agenda. So I don't think people should think that it's extra work per se. It's really just, I think, organization and helping facilitate conversation during the meetings. But again, I think we're at this like the point we have some people last year and some people in their first year, and I do think it's really hard in the first 10 minutes of a first meeting to step forward, particularly for new members. So my vote would be to let us run through a meeting or two, and then people can feel more comfortable about taking on a position like that. But that's just my opinion.
I concur with Lisa.
Me too.
Great. I think that yeah, if there aren't, I have no qualms about that. I think ultimately, as the committee wants to move forward, that makes sense to me. There aren't any no's or contrary points of views. We can continue with the agenda.
Can somebody repeat for me, please, what that decision was?
I'll repeat it, and then Lisa, you can correct me. I'm going to check my understanding. Because we have a lot of new members, want to give new members a few meetings in to get a sense of the meetings, and then be able to have a co-chair, so someone that has more experience be partnered with someone who is new, to then work through together in tandem over the subsequent meetings.
Thank you.
And
I agree.
Awesome. One of the things we can also do is we can share a few links as we work through the next few meetings. We can share a few links from some of the prior meetings, maybe some of the later meetings where we had like guest speakers or more robust agendas, so that folks can also get a sense of like, oh, if you watch this video from April 10th or whatever the case is, it gives you a sense of the level of engagement and activity. And I think to emphasize something that Lisa said, Jordan's awesome. So a lot of the agenda, major lifts, putting that information together, Jordan gets ahead of it, and they do a great job of structuring their folks' feedback and thoughts into the process. If there aren't any other comments, we can spend 15 minutes here, maybe a little more, for folks to take a look at the operating guide. And I think there were some minor edits that were done last year, but just as we get into the practice with a new committee, let's spend 15 minutes to review, and you can add comments, suggested edits. And then as we get into identifying who the chair is, then we can have then that structured conversation and finalizing what the operating guide would be. And we can revisit it just kind of based on timing and see where we are over the next few weeks. But I believe, Jordan, you put the link in the chat, so you all should have access to it. So let's take about 15 minutes to review it.
Thank you. If anybody's having trouble with access, let me know. I do know Google Docs can be a little bit wonky for folks who aren't using a Gmail account. But yeah, let me know, and I'm happy to get that to you in another format if needed.
It might be a clarification that the operating guide is ultimately adopted by the board and not not by us. We can recommend changes and so on, but
Thank you, Roger. Yep.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Yep. And if you have comments on the operating guide and you don't want to put them directly into the guide or having trouble with that, you can also put them in the chat and I will copy them down.
You folks need more time? We're at about a 5-minute mark, like 5 minutes remaining, but if you need more time to review, please, you can hit the hand feature if you need a few more minutes. Okay, I don't see any hands up, or it doesn't seem like folks need more time. Great. Okay. Well, what we can do then, see Karanja. Okay, we'll give it 5 minutes. That way we get to the 15-minute mark.
There's a couple of comments in the guide that we can address after our 5 minutes is up, before we move on. All right. It looks like Karanja is ready to go. If everyone else is good, we can move forward. So there was a couple of before we move on, there's a couple of notes in the operating guide that I think we can address now. So one, Mariah, who joined us a little bit late this evening, but so happy she could make it. She did ask in the comments, what guidelines are we using to determine when to resume in-person meetings? Currently, there are no guidelines that require us to meet virtually. It is at this point in time determined by the committee whether we would like to meet entirely in person or entirely virtual, or have some sort of hybrid option. And so one of the one of the items on the agenda today that we haven't gotten to yet is starting the discussion on that, and then hopefully making a decision around the meeting format.
And also as we think about making a decision as well, if the group makes a decision, that's awesome. And also thinking about whether the decision gets delayed as a chair or co-chair is identified. Just throwing it out there, from my perspective, from our perspective, we're fine either way, but it's just considerations for the committee to think through.
Yes, thank you. And then the other one I wanted to mention that Sonia answered actually in the operating guide. Thank you, Sonia. Lisa had asked if the date should be November through May for CBRC meetings. There are years where it kind of trails into June. And this year it doesn't seem to be the case. I think we're only going to May. But yeah, there are some years that occurs. Right, that's all I have to say on the operating guide. Do we have any?
There have been years where CBRC has gotten underway in September, but so.
Thank you, Roger. Does anybody else have comments regarding the operating guide that they'd like to mention? I am saving your notes in that guide. Like Roger had said, the operating guide is ultimately decided upon by the board, but we can at least bring these suggestions and edits forward, and perhaps we can save that for further discussion in a future meeting, and perhaps when we have our board member liaison present. Yeah. Roberto, do you have anything else to say on?
No, I am fidgeting with my camera because it keeps shutting off and on, but I am here.
Okay.
Thank you.
I was wondering about that.
Can I add a minor comment? There's a quorum is mentioned but not defined.
Could you repeat that? What is mentioned but not defined?
A quorum.
Oh, that's a good point. We do follow the traditional quorum guidelines, and we don't have like the math breakdown here, but I think it's a good point to call it out so that based on it's in the traditional sense. So it's like the 50% plus one, but it would be good to call it out and just define that better, since we do follow like the traditional open meeting rules.
Okay, do we have any more discussion on the operating guide? Nope. All right. And so just moving forward into the next portion of our agenda, I was going to go over a few different resources available to you. One of which is brand new. I just started working on it a few weeks ago. And I'm hopeful that it will be very helpful to you. And so I say that because I welcome feedback, any ideas or suggestions on how to improve to just make things more accessible to you all, the better. But the next part is I want to first go over the CBRC member portal. And so I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen and just kind of walk you through it. But before I do that, I'm going to put the link to it in the chat. So if you want to walk through it with me, that would be great. But I'm going to share my screen real quick. Okay, so essentially, are you all able to see this? Awesome. So essentially, it's just a Google site where we're going to store a lot of our resources, information, materials that occur throughout the budget cycle. And so just starting on this home page, I just tried to put not a lot on the front page, but just things that I feel like would be most important to you. And so on this first page, I just went ahead and put upcoming meeting agendas. Once the meeting agendas are set, I'm just going to plug them in right there on the front page. So if you're ever wondering what the agenda is looking like in the next meeting, it'll be there. I've also included on this front page a lot of helpful links. These links are to a whole bunch of different things I can think of. But again, if you can think of anything that would be helpful to you that I should include here, please let me know. We have things from our CBRC webpage that's on the PPS website. Last year's report is linked in here, including last year's local option levy report, the budget volumes, the budget books that were adopted last year are also in here, the operating guide, charter, a whole bunch of other things. So yes, please let me know if there's anything I should add there. The last thing I linked in this front page is the operating guide. Of course, if there are any updates to that, I will update it in here as well. Moving on from there. So at the top of this site, you're going to see a whole lot of different tabs. These tabs are probably going to change a little bit over time, but I tried to do my best to think of a way to format this that would be easiest for you. I have in here a page for 2022-23, that's our current year materials. So if you were to click on that, as these meetings occur, I'm going to link in here the agenda and as well as the meeting recording once that is uploaded on YouTube. And then if there are any resources that we discussed in the meetings, specifically, slide decks or other materials, I will link those down below in here as well. If you hover over the meeting agendas, I did also include all of last year's agendas. So these are all linked in here. So if you click on any one of these agendas, you'll see the agenda. If you click on the video, I also included the recordings. So I know we were talking earlier about going back, new members going back and watching some of the old materials. You can find that in here. But of course, you can also find that on the PPS YouTube channel. The next, or I'm going to skip over this next tab for now, but I'll come back to it. I also included a tab for video resources. There are some resources or some board meetings, work sessions that occur throughout the year where they're talking about the budget, and also some of the other committees where they're talking about the budget. I'm going to try to link those in here as often as I can. And of course, as we're moving forward throughout the year, and I'm looking at you, Roger, since you attend practically every meeting, if you could let me know if I missed anything and it's not in here, I will add it. So far, what I have included in here is the board work session on the 9th of November, where they're talking about the budget. They invited Education Resource Strategies, one of our contractors, to that meeting. That's a really, really informative one. I suggest you take some time watching. I also linked in here the Levy committee meeting that occurred on the 8th of November. That meeting specifically, if you're wanting to learn about the local option levy, so helpful. I watched it myself. I'm not an expert on the levy, and I learned a lot just by watching that meeting. So I highly recommend it. And then, of course, as other resources or videos come up throughout the cycle, I'll include those in here as well. Going back up to the top, calendar and meeting link. In here, I have linked our CBRC calendar. Right now, we only have one meeting, so that's all you're seeing. But if you click on into this, you can change the view to month or to week. I also include on this calendar those different board events that are occurring throughout the year that are specific to the budget. That would be helpful. And then down below is our Zoom meeting link that you can use, or you can find that here very quickly. And then once our dates are determined, I'm going to put those all in here as well. And then the last tab, I'm not going to click into it, but because I don't want to share screen a bunch of contact information, but that tab will have member and staff contact info so that you can engage with each other throughout the cycle. Yep, you'll always be able to find that in here. And then the last tab that I haven't gone over, that I skipped over earlier, is the question and answers tab. One of the reasons I skipped over that is because we haven't decided yet, or you haven't all decided yet, how you would like to take in questions and how you would like staff to answer those questions. So I added into our agenda a couple of examples of how that's occurred in the past. In some instances, the board chair or the committee chair is responsible for taking in all of the questions that you have and then bringing those to the staff. The staff answers and then brings them back. That's one way we can do it. Another way we could do it that I have linked in here is a Google form. If you do want to do it that way, we can leave a button in this Google site where you can just quickly submit a question. Those questions will populate into a spreadsheet, and then the staff will answer as quickly as possible. And those will all be just stored in here. No matter what, we're going to find a way to just store all of your questions and the answers to them so that you can all see them. That way we're not necessarily answering the same question over and over again, or nobody's missing any information. But we can develop this, I suppose, when we do finally have a chair and a co-chair. Yeah, we can work through that. For now, I'm happy to continue accepting your questions via email or text, chat, however you want to send questions. I will compile those questions into this spreadsheet that I'm already using. Yeah, you can go from there. Does anybody have any questions about this Google site? Nope. Nope,
I just want to say good work, Jordan. That's great that it's all in one place.
Yeah, I was going to make a comment, said this is a great resource. Good job.
Thank you, Karanja. I appreciate that. Yeah, last year certainly was a pain just trying to keep all the information together. We've historically used a Google Drive. However, not everybody in this group has Gmail, wouldn't necessarily be able to access all of that there. That was going to be my other point, is if you aren't currently using a Gmail and having trouble accessing anything, please let me know. Or you could also create a Gmail just specifically for this if you wish, but we'll find a way to get you access to everything you need access to without Gmail.
I'll just quickly chime in, just huge shout out. So for those of you who were on board last year and kind of saw some of the meetings, right? It's like learning curve, year 2. And so I think as we're looking to create a central place for folks to access information is going to be important, because you want it at your fingertips, and whether it's access to it or want to reach out to someone. So thank you, Jordan, for putting through that. When he first had this vision, I'm like, I'm not quite sure I understand it, but go for it. Looks awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Good job, Jordan. You've done a super job, I think. And you've answered the question I was going to ask, whether this was going to be available to the public, because I just today got asked by a teacher for our previous reports, and I said, well, it's on the website and so on, so that's where the public would access stuff is on the website and not in this member portal.
That's correct. Yep. Yep. This is going to only be for CBRC members. I've in the settings tried to limit access in as many ways as possible. But yeah, I think actually entirely all of this information is available on the website, on the PPS website, on the CBRC page, other than maybe the member information. But yeah, everything else is public. Folks can find it. Also, if you have any suggestions, tips on how to make that more accessible to our communities, also would love to take that in and work with you on improving. Because of course, beyond just access for you all, it's really important that all of our communities are able to access this information.
I believe the website shows the committee membership, but maybe I don't know. I haven't looked at it for quite some time, but if there's a link there as to how to contact the committee, maybe that's generic enough rather than giving out our individual information of our contact. So.
Yeah, as of right now, I'm the conduit for every and all questions from community, but we'll look further into how we can do that and organize it so that it's not too much of a burden on any one person. But yeah, if there's no questions about the Google site, I would like to move on to this text option that I have written on the agenda. So I was hoping, hold on, everybody. This is going to happen every meeting, by the way. The lights always turn off around this time at the central office. So just so you know, we're going to start like shaking around and trying to turn them on.
Right, you see us waving our hands. Do not be alarmed. Nor are we having fun. Like some dance party.
It's not fun. It's wonderfully embarrassing, and it's all over YouTube. So the text option, I was hoping just to offer you all, if anybody here just wants to receive a text reminder when our next committee meetings are coming up. So every meeting, I'm going to send probably the day before, just a reminder saying, hey, meeting's tomorrow. If you're wanting to receive a text notification as well, if you could just put that in the chat and say yes, I can record that down, and I'd be happy to also text you when, just text you a reminder when the meetings are coming up.
Don't you have to have a private cell phone number to text?
Are you talking about me? I mean, I have a work cell phone that I use.
No, but I say if you want to text us, don't you have to have our cell phone number?
Yeah, I do have a number on file for each of you. Although please do let me know if that's a home, like a not a cell phone that I can text, if it's call only. But I'm pretty sure everyone included their cell phone number when filling out the application, and I have those stored in the. Yep.
And it would be y'all opting in. So if you want to receive a heads up and a reminder, so you can share that number. Otherwise, we won't use it.
Yep, that is correct. All right. And again, if you're missing anything as I'm covering these resources, don't worry. I'll send them all to you via email, just in a package tomorrow, along with other resources that we've covered tonight. So the other couple of items I put in the agenda are the CBRC website. Of course, that's a great place to direct community as they're asking you questions and where they can find stuff. It's also a space that you can go to find to find things. There still is going to be a Google Drive where I'm storing all of this stuff. Everyone who has a Gmail or a PPS email has access to that drive already. I've given you all access and linked it in the agenda. If you don't have a Gmail, you can feel free to use the Google site or let me know if you need access in another way, and we can work on that. I also linked in here the YouTube playlist where all of our CBRC meetings will be stored. And then I referenced the calendar in here as well, which I'll be updating regularly. If you go into the Google Calendar, you'll also notice that there's the Zoom link in there, and the agenda for that meeting will also be in there. So the next thing I wanted to get into was, how does the committee prefer to collect questions from members? We don't have to decide that tonight. We could wait until there is a co-chair, but I wanted to leave that up to you all to decide. Does anybody here have any comments on that? Noberto, if you also have anything to add, you can add that to that too. But yeah.
I think just from practice, usually it's great to be able to receive it in a single point of contact. So whether that doesn't necessarily mean a person, but like a Google form, because then it allows to collate it and organize it and be able to post it. Folks can go back and find it. And so, right, emails work in a day. There's hundreds of emails. So it's just one of those, sometimes maybe it's an email, then a follow-up with Jordan, hey, there was also an email question. Did you see it? So just kind of throwing out some ideas there of some of the things that have worked out, not just in this committee, but also engaging with the board, having a single intake process usually turns out better for tracking and ultimately for sharing out. And Mariah, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I love the idea of a Google form. If staff would be willing to perhaps develop that, and then when we have a chair and co-chair and so forth, perhaps delegating that responsibility from staff to those folks to monitor that, or however you've decided it. But I really like the Google form. It's very transparent on the back end.
Just note, if we do decide to go that route on the Google site, the button for submit a question, I already did create a Google form, and we could go ahead and use that if the committee decides they want to.
I think the Google form is an excellent way to go. Just so maybe a little clarification. We're a committee of 15 this year. If you get 15 different questions fired at the staff, their workload increases considerably. The function in previous years of routing them through the chair was to, if there's a commonality between questions, that they are consolidated into one, and so on, and it's not to attempt to censor anybody from inquiring about any subject area.
And I see Grace has her hand up.
Hi, I just was wondering about the Google form, and I think you just answered it, Roger. Thank you. I was wondering, once the questions are put in, who would post them for the members to see? Would it be on a Google Doc, like an FAQ with a question and an answer on the one side, or how that would work?
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick, Grace, because I know you had to come in late. I just shared with you in the chat a link to the member portal that I was sharing with folks before you got here. there will be a Google Sheet where we're collecting all of those questions and answers. It is linked in the Google site in the tab called Questions and Answers. However we decide to collect the questions, they'll always end up being stored in a Google Sheet anyway, and you'll have access to that here. And then of course, if there's ever a time where you're struggling to find it, you can let me know and I'll make sure that you get access to it. But the Google Sheet will be stored in the CBRC shared drive, so you all will have access to it either way in that shared Google Drive.
Thank you.
Glad you could be here. Are we ready to move on to the next thing?
I think so. Yeah.
Cool. I'm happy to jump into that too. So the fun part we got to do now is decide or confirm dates. So in the agenda, but I'm also going to put it in the chat, is a list of dates that folks are most available based on the doodle poll that I sent out a while back. I would like for you all to just review those dates, and perhaps we can let the group or go ahead and let us know if you have any comments on those dates or would like to make suggestions on changing those dates. The other thing we have to decide this evening, or at least discuss this evening, is the time of the meetings. So over the last budget cycle, it was 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. However, I do know that there are folks who have shared that is a struggle for them. So if you have any suggestions on moving that time, let us definitely let folks know tonight. And yeah, I'm gonna pass it over to you all to discuss.
I'll quickly chime in. Some of the considerations here is that life happens. So we know that, things happen and we have this great plan in place, but then curveballs thrown at us for whatever reason. So as we put these calendars on the date, it really is like trying to put together some holds on people's calendars, knowing that, right, life happens. It's not going to be 100%. We know it's going to be maybe difficult for some folks to attend all meetings for one reason or another, and then also just as y'all look at the dates, I can't recall if it was at some committee meeting, like one of the dates was on spring break, and I was like, wait, no one's going to be here, so let's let that. So it's a good call, good catch. So as just things to consider as we go through assessing those dates.
I would like to see the meetings not start before 6. Can you hear me? Okay, that's my iPad. And then
sound great.
And the meetings that are on the schedule right now I can do, but that February 9th, a potential backup, I cannot do. That's not on this list. It's on the agenda. It's not on the chat list, but it's on the agenda.
I would also appreciate a later start time. I have a standing appointment on Thursdays until 6.
For me, all the dates and times work well. I think as we get later start times, that's going to start to become a little bit more difficult. But yeah, I would just go with what the majority goes with.
Yeah, me too. This is Taz. I'm pretty flexible with as far as timing as of right now, but it could change. So I agree.
I'll just chime in. I can do all these dates. I would have a preference for 5:30 or later.
So just to go over what I've heard so far, it sounds like quite a few of you would like to see a start time after 6 p.m. 6 or sometime after 6. Do you say that's correct?
Well, I'm saying I would prefer to not see it go beyond start past 6, because I guess they're 2 hours, right? So if we're starting after 6, we're pushing it kind of late.
Yeah.
So I guess I want to keep that in mind too. But also I guess maybe as the meetings continue to go on, we'll kind of get a groove and we'll know how long these meetings are lasting. Maybe they won't last the full 2 hours. So yeah.
And I was going to chime in. I think last year, I can't recall a meeting going past 7 or past the 2 hours. And I think for the most part, most meetings were done fairly early. As we were approaching time to write the letter, folks were very respectful of each other's time. And that was let's break off and work on it asynchronously. And so I think that it's 2 hours, but that doesn't mean it needs to be 2 hours. So we can say meetings need to be an hour and a half, right? As we get into like something that the chair and co-chairs and vice chairs can help facilitate. And so then that would also require us to just think about having an effective agenda. To Roger's point, getting like moving along accordingly so that we can touch on all the right topics. But as the group considers that, we do want to be respectful of people's time and family and dinner and bedtime stories. So I have 2 boys, so I know how that plays out.
Well, I think the discussion has hit the, historically, the committee has met at various times. And at 6 and at 6:30 and so on. If you've got discipline in your meetings and so on, and like last year we did adjourn several meetings early, and you don't have to go 2 hours. You don't have to speak 5 times on each subject. It all depends on whether we're meeting in person or whether we're meeting virtually or we're meeting in some kind of a hybrid format. I think if we continue to meet virtually, it's easier to set a time to start and to adjourn, and otherwise you've got commute considerations of getting to Profit Service Center and let's committee members bear in mind that we're involving staff members, and we're extending their work day by extending our hours of our meeting later into the evening. So sometimes I lament that the board is not very cognizant of that, and they'll go on and on late into the night, and they're literally expending hundreds of thousands of dollars with staff time. So
Selfishly, I do not check to see if any of those dates are board meeting dates, but that's not important. All kidding aside, I think as a committee assesses to Roger's point, like thinking about the efficacy of the agenda setting and the conversations along with some flexibility, right? Sounds like depending, maybe we get like, we want robust conversations, folks all in, and just kind of trying to find that sweet spot so that folks can come together. Sounds like something like 6 o'clock to 7:30 or 5:30 to 7:30. Just thinking about that. But I think that as we collect these comments and feedback, we'll make sure to bring it back to the committee. I was going to say before our next meeting, which I know that's one of the standing questions as well, is thinking about December. Unfortunately, kind of thinking about staff time, we're going to be tied up with some other committees and events in December, and wanted to come to the group here to get some feedback. I know on the agenda we have a few options around, no meeting in December, to having a meetings on some other day that's not a Thursday, and even thinking about asynchronous learning and an opportunity to potentially engage with materials or questions. Maybe there's a ongoing conversation that folks can tap into in their respective times or during times that fits their respective schedules. So also want to just get some feedback around the committee's thoughts for December.
Well, I'll chime in quickly and say, if all the dates that are in the chat are Thursdays, I'm fine with that, and would urge the committee to adopt those meeting times. If we want to change the hour, I'm open to that as well, as long as it's something that's consistent. I'm in favor of us not meeting in December, but if those who wish to participate in asynchronous learning opportunities, I'm open to that as well.
Can I ask why we currently don't have meetings in December? Is it because we didn't find any dates, or is it because we don't necessarily think we need meetings in December?
That was a primarily reason, that it was being able to find some dates that also allowed staff to be present as we go through the process. So there weren't enough overlap to come up with some consistent options for December.
I'll just add to that too. So part of that reasoning is because we're holding a lot of budget engagement throughout December and January. And so if we were to consider like an asynchronous December schedule, we could, that could also include budget engagement events that you could attend. Yeah, just throwing that out there. It's a shorter month because we have a couple of weeks off, and we couldn't find.
I was going to say, those committee members that have students in school, winter break begins on Saturday, the 17th of December, and runs till the 3rd of January. So just be aware of those dates.
That's next month. So what are our options for, if we met in December, what are the options? Wednesday, Tuesday?
Yeah, we would have to, we could look at a Wednesday. I hesitate to say Tuesdays because those are also board meetings. Evenings. So yeah, it would probably have to be either a Monday or a Wednesday or a Friday.
And so it seems like with those time we have left, we're talking about one meeting or maybe two at most.
Sorry, I missed that. Could you repeat that?
So it seems like we are talking about one or two meetings, and then I think like because we have December, with 2 full weeks in December before we're break, right? And it's like so it seems like you can fit 1 meeting in there, maybe 2. It seems like you have no Thursday, no Friday. Friday I think is kind of bad. Friday evening I probably people have other things to do. Tuesday I think is board meeting time. You said so you have Monday, Wednesday. So you could do a doodle poll with Monday, Wednesday for 2 weeks. It's 4 days that you could check. If you don't find anything there, you do the remote learning. And I think that would be preferred over nothing, because I think you want to get some content across in December, because it makes our work easier in January.
Jordan, is there a timeline on the portal of when we have to get certain things done? Like, for example, I think there's a letter. When is the letter supposed to be completed?
Yeah. Norberto, do you want to? Yep.
Yeah. The letter to the board and the local option levy certifications happen normally like the first week during the first 10 days of May. That's when the information gets presented to the board. So that means that the committee, the CBRC committee, is working on that through the month of April. And so right, it's like building understanding, but like the actual deliverable happens in May.
Yeah, and you'll typically around March, probably early March, the committee will likely decide either to add meetings to the calendar, depending on how much time you all want to spend together pulling those reports together. You can also spend a lot of time doing that outside of meetings. So, but yeah, just from my experience last year, there were more meetings kind of pressed into March and May.
I believe the budget calendar that the board has adopted has us presenting on May 9th.
Sorry, I meant to say March and April. I think I was saying May. I meant to say March and April.
Could you put that in the chat, the board budget timeline?
Yeah, yep, I'll find it right now.
Could we just make a decision on what time we're going to start? So 5:30 or 6, it sounds like, right? Does it sound like 5:30 p.m. or 6 p.m.? Those 2 times? So
correct.
Should we just vote on 5:30 or vote on 6 p.m.?
I second.
Sure. Okay. How many people want 5:30 p.m.?
Do we put our hand up?
Yeah. Do
could you...
that little hand thing, symbol, or your real hand. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Please leave them up too.
Well, you know what? How many people? I take that back. How many people do not want to meet at 5:30 p.m.? That would not be a choice. Okay. How many people do not want to meet at 6 p.m.? That is not your first choice. Oh, you guys. Okay, so it sounds like 5:30 then, right?
I'm just because I have to record these things down too, and I'm having a hard time keeping up, Renee. Could I also ask you all to, I'm like, I can't tell what's going on.
See, I'm not the chair.
Renee, you would be
just
so good
about
at
to
it.
like bring that up, Renee. I'm like, sounds like someone's like vying to be the chair.
5:30 is okay.
Yeah, she took charge first, so she gets to be chair. No, if you could in the chat put either 5:30 or 6. If you want 5:30, then put 5:30. If you want 6, you put 6.
Or either. No,
or
either.
Or either. Yeah, sure. Yep.
Okay.
That way I can copy and paste.
Okay. See, you're our board chair, Jordan.
No.
Or maybe we can do the same for the December meeting, 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah. Like Wednesday, should it be Wednesday? Yeah. Oh, I'm supposed to be chatting.
Apologies, I think I had the settings set so that you could only chat to me, but I did open that up to the whole group now. I'm just realizing I'm getting a ton of direct messages.
Could we? Well, you're what's going on? I guess.
Oops. Right here. Okay, so looks like we have
Just kind of looking through it, it seems like it's 5:30. And we can do the official count
Yeah,
as well.
it looks like 5:30.
Looks like 5:30. So then we'll make plans to start at 5:30. And then I think Sonia had a great idea regarding December. And why don't we do, I think the options were 1, 2, 3, I believe. I can't recall if there was a 4. I cannot see my agenda.
You mean December 1st, December 2nd, December 3rd?
No, I'm sorry. Being able to select option 1, option 2, or option 3. I believe that's. I'm going back to the notes here to help us. All right, so I'm going to put this in the chat so that we're all looking at this.
Oh, no. Oh, no meeting. Okay, got it.
I just want to comment on that. I think that sounds good. I just want to comment on, like, if we cannot find a time in December that we have a quorum, then we need to find an alternative.
And I think when we start thinking about the quorum, it may come down to if we're having to vote on something specific. But without anything to vote on, it may not necessarily be that big of it may not be a big concern. I think when we think about asynchronous options, for example, I'm thinking of a few slide decks that we could share and just like, hey, when you have a moment, take a look at this video or take a look at this slide and, comment, say questions. A topic that comes to mind is voting for co-chair, right? So that maybe that's still too soon, but as an example, if there were any sort of considerations or conversations, maybe someone says, you know what, I thought about it. I want to throw my hat in, look forward to having a conversation. But I think that as we think through the stage of building understanding and sharing information, that's how we can leverage asynchronous, if that's an option for folks.
And as Jordan mentioned, we could also be part of the budget meetings at school. Also, that would be part of it.
Yep, you'll get the dates. We'll share the dates, and then you may decide, to spend your Thursday evening with us in December, doing something else. And looking at the responses, I think it's leaning on 3 with option 2 coming in closely behind. But based on what I'm seeing here, I believe it is going to be, we'll go with option 3. And so then we'll coordinate accordingly. And work towards a synchronous, like sharing information and getting information out for folks to review. And in addition to that, by then we'll have our dates for community engagement events.
Exciting. We got through 2 of the 3 pieces.
Well, that
Very
first
rad.
one is a lot more involved in getting folks to nominate, getting folks to know each other. That's all critically important.
Yeah. If we could put focus on the list of potential dates that we can meet for the remainder of the year. I don't know if we want to go around and take another vote on that, or if we want to do that separately, or push that to the next meeting time. I will say that it's better.
Let's set the meetings. Let's go with the list that you presented.
That's Roger's say. I will say it's good for us to have dates on the calendar ahead of time for community members who are planning on tuning in or staying engaged that are not on the committee, and for the board also, just as early as possible to have those dates on calendar is good. It's a good thing. So Roger's vote is to just say yes to the list that I posted in the chat.
I'll make a motion that we approve the
Right.
list as presented.
I second.
Me too.
Anybody have any issues with the list that I put in the chat? If not, we can just agree and then figure out things as they come along if certain dates don't work.
So what's in the chat?
Thank you, Lisa. All right.
Good.
Well, thanks so much, everyone. I think as we get towards the last sections here, we'll open it up for the group as we think. Any questions regarding this, the process, or was something not clear regarding the dates? Just kind of opening it up for any questions before we close. I saw a few chat messages. Yes, and we will be sending out meeting invites and holds on people's calendars. So Jordan will work through that, and you'll see the different meeting dates. So we'll have that booked. We'll publish the dates as well on the website, and those are the dates, right? Those dates, 5:30. And we'll be working towards those to that schedule.
I had a question in the operating agreements in the comments.
Yes.
You right?
Ranja, did you want to call it? I'm trying to find it. I don't think I see
Here,
it.
I can. Kranja, are you referring to the part where it says evaluate?
Yeah, I would just want some clarity on that.
Yeah. Roberto, are you able to see that?
Yes. So the evaluation process is really taking a look at how the resources that the superintendent proposes in the proposed budget are aligned towards working towards achieving the board goals. So everything from how are the looking at it at the system level, how are resources being used to support elementary education? And then what are like the maybe some respective initiatives that the superintendent calls out that are being invested in elementary or the math curriculum. And so as we work towards the presentation of the superintendent's proposed budget, we'll have conversations around data, we'll have conversations around initiatives, instructional framework, and different investments that are happening. And when I say investments, right, it goes beyond just like dollars. It's like, how are people being managed? How's time being used? And so there'll be several components that would then help build your understanding towards evaluating the superintendent's budget to make a determination of like, yeah, it makes sense that 70% of resources are being spent at school sites, or that an investment is happening in ensuring that counselors or social workers are moved into these areas, or different programs are being carried out. That ESSER funding, for example, is being shifted to support summer programming. So like there'll be several pieces like that to help inform the committee's opinion as they evaluate that proposal that the superintendent will put together in April. A lot of like building up to that will also happen in a work session with the board, which is scheduled in March as well. And last year was my first full year, but I also welcome Roger, Renee, folks who've been here longer as well. They've had different experiences, different staff, maybe in different superintendents, and just through time as far as like how some of that has panned out.
Sounds good.
When is the first draft usually presented?
The first draft, the proposed budget is officially presented towards the end of April.
It's just once.
I guess when do we review it? I guess before. Are we going to review it before it gets to the public?
Yeah, so in collaboration with the board, so that all happens around the same time, and so the board gets it. Our goal is for them to get it a few weeks in advance. And I will share, this past year was a tough year as we had vacancies. We did not have a full team, so we were working to meet some of those deadlines, but the goal is to get it in advance to give folks a time to process. However, I will share, not just from my experience here, but in other districts as well, that it's a meaty document. It's about 400 to 500 pages when you put it all together, and it really is compliance driven because there's specific requirements that need to be met. But there are specific sections that we call out, or there would be specific presentations that help summarize the information that happened before that April date that the superintendent presents the budget. So there would be elements, whether it's the staffing plan, whether it's initiative to support learning acceleration for our Black and Native students, and all these other efforts that would be shared out, because the budget book itself resides somewhat as a compliance technical document, but we do our best to pull out pieces for the conversations.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
The simple answer, Karanja, is that we have a very short time frame in which to review a very large document that involves a huge amount of money. And so there's a lot of reading involved. and the report that we render is drafted within a 10-day period. At least it was last year. So to give you an example, it gets really arduous at the end.
Great. Thank you for sharing. I was just wondering, you know, if there was enough time and there were some preliminary things before the draft is even out that we are engaged in to be able to review. But it sounds like we just review and evaluate during the springtime. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, not necessarily. The staff in these preliminary months leading up to the presentation of the superintendent's budget is an opportunity for us to be briefed on various sections. For example, each year there's considerations that involve special education, ELL type of programs. Just to give an example, so briefings on those kinds of subject matter in years prior have been helpful once we get this proposed budget to aid in our evaluation.
Are those briefings during our meetings, or is that outside of our meeting time?
In our meetings.
We have any more questions for this evening? These are great questions, Karanja. Thank you for asking them.
Yeah, thank you. I don't see any hands up.
If not, I am happy to help close this out and provide a couple last details. Yeah.
I think that's Roger waving goodbye.
Sweet.
Thank you, everyone. I think as some takeaways, we'll send some follow-up information and expect the meeting invites so that you don't forget to come join us, and have an amazing evening.
Our next meeting officially, just saying this for the record, January 12th, 2023, with December asynchronous learning throughout. We'll send you some things in December. And then again, if you have any questions, feel welcome to email me. You have the Google site already. You can also ask questions through that Google form in there. But, yep. Call, text, whatever you need. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
have a
Jordan.
great evening.
It's been awesome, everybody. I really enjoyed it. Like my pet is about to explode. I'm just so excited.
That's great to hear.
I love that. Thank you so much, Taz, for being here.
Yeah, absolutely.
We all are